Hi guys, this is Angry Chris, and today I'm here to talk about sleeping bags. So when you're packing for your bug out bag, a sleeping bag is a pretty important choice because you're going to spend a lot of time in it and it's going to keep you warm at night. Now a lot of people will go with this bag. This is an Army modular sleeping bag, and a lot of people tend to think that because the Army carries it, it is the bee's knees and that you should carry it too. And what I'm here today is to make a case for why you shouldn't get this bag, but you should instead get this bag, which is a Marmot sleeping bag. So the first thing you'll notice about this bag is that it's fucking huge. It's about a cubic foot worth of sleeping bag, and it weighs an astounding 11 pounds, which is a lot to be carrying on your back when you consider you also have a bag full of other stuff. The other big problem is, of course, with it being so large, is it takes up too much room in your pack. And you could attach it to the outside of your pack, but you know, that has its own set of problems. So this bag is about 11 pounds, whereas this bag is 1.5 pounds. So if you guys watched my last video, I showed off my Kifaru tent. For the weight savings that I get between these two bags, I can actually pack all this stuff. So this is my Kifaru tent, a collapsible cot, and a silk liner for the sleeping bag if I want to make it a little bit warmer. So all this stuff together weighs the same amount as that sleeping bag. Now if I want to add an extra 2-3 pounds, I also get the Kifaru stove and a pillow, but you get the idea. I mean, instead of having, you know, all the weight of a sleeping bag and then the weight of a tent, I can have my sleeping bag, a cot, a tent, and then for the amount of weight that you would normally traditionally reserve for your tent, I get a stove. So let's take a look at these and I'll kind of go through. So this bag actually did not come with the sleeping bag. I bought it separate, but it's really nice because it's waterproof and it's just a really good compression bag. So this bag is actually a down sleeping bag, and that's what makes it so light. Synthetic materials have all sorts of claims, but the one claim they can't make is that they're any kind of light. So this bag is actually called the Plasma 30, and it's by Marmot, and it is it's good all the way down to 30 degrees Fahrenheit comfortably, and that's important because we're gonna get back to that when I undo this sleeping bag. So the Army bag is actually a modular sleep system, so it's got a couple of different components that can work together or separately, depending on what you want to do. All right. So before I get too down on this bag, let me just say that when you have all the pieces together, it is a pretty warm bag. But that's about kind of the end of the nice things that I have to say about it. So let's just get down into this component. So the first part it has is this outside piece. It's just a waterproof bivy sack. And all these different components, they just kind of snap together. We'll get this all unzipped and show the different parts here. So this is just it's a 3-layer sleeping bag. So this inside piece right here is your cold weather bag, and by itself it is supposed to be good from 30 degrees down to 0 degrees, and that's without those other pieces. Now that said, and I told you we'd come back to it when I was talking about that one, is with the Army, when they give their heat ratings, they're talking about not comfortable, but rather minimum required to stay alive. So what they're guaranteeing you is that if you're in this bag all by itself, you can survive down to 0 degrees and get about 4 hours worth of okay sleep. They're also assuming that you'll be wearing your polypros or some sort of a cold weather gear while you're in that bag. Whereas this bag is rated to be 30 degrees comfortably without any cold weather gear. Just get that out of there. This piece all by itself is quote unquote good from 30 degrees down to 10 degrees. The next piece we have right here is called your patrol bag. Now this guy is supposed to be good from about 50 degrees down to 30 degrees. But again, at the 30 degree rating, what they're talking about is sort of the minimum required to stay alive, not comfortable, and they're expecting that you're going to be wearing cold weather gear to be in at that temperature. Now, if you combine these two like they were before, they're supposed to be good all the way down to -40. You're not going to be too comfortable at -40 in this sleeping bag. You probably will be comfortable at 0 degrees with them combined. So, and then the outside piece is basically, they claim you can use it as a blanket, you know, if it's 60, 70 degrees out, but really what it's just for is to keep your sleeping bags from getting wet. So, really what you have is a two-piece system, because you're always going to want to have this piece with you just to keep your bag dry. So this is supposed to be good down to 30 degrees, this guy down to 0 degrees, combined down to -40. Now, I don't plan on going into the mountains if I'm bugging out. So I will probably be, you know, just in the sort of normal temperate zone of wherever I'm living at the time. Right now I live in Washington, and the coldest it gets here, usually throughout the year, is about 30 degrees. Occasionally we'll dip down to about 25 degrees, but it's pretty rare, and it lasts for maybe 4 or 5 days out of the entire year. So for me, this bag will really keep me comfortable down to the lowest temperature in Washington 98% of the time. On the few days that it gets a little bit too cold for this bag, I can put on my cold weather gear, which is something that's expected in these bags. Now you could say, yes, this has a bigger range, and that's true. But like I said, I'm probably not going to go up into the mountains. But you could say, well, since you're not going to do that, then you could only carry a portion of it. Well, so if I only carry this bag, which will take care of me on those cold days, the problem is I will get too warm if it gets over about 40, 45 degrees. So that's not really going to work for me by itself. Similarly, I can't only carry this bag because I'll freeze my balls off in it. So I have to carry both, which means I'm going to have to carry the 11 pounds. Now, if I lived in a slightly colder area, Marmot actually makes a colder version of this bag. It's called the Plasma 15, and it's good comfortably down to 15 degrees. Oh, and I forgot to mention, these also have survival ratings too. So what these guys talk about as their normal range, which is supposed to be their actual survival range, these guys have that too. So this is comfortable at 30 degrees, it's survival at 0 degrees. The Plasma 15 bag, which is just basically the same thing, it has a little bit more fill in it, weighs 2 pounds instead of 1.5, is comfortable at 15 degrees, and you can survive in it down to -14. So I could get a colder bag. I don't think I would ever try and bug out and survive in a situation where it's going to be below 0 degrees for a long time, because that's just going to introduce all sorts of other bugging out problems. So for my purposes, this bag will get me through most of the year, and I can be comfortable in it whether it's 30 degrees or whether it's 60 degrees, because it vents really well if you need it to. So it's got a full-length zipper. And then inside, we've got this neck collar right here, which you can just kind of cinch around your neck when you're sleeping. It keeps all the heat sort of down there. And it's got another one, another little cincher here too around the hood, and just a little pad there for your head, a little built-in pillow. The other nice thing about this, which the Army bag doesn't really have, is we've got this draft tube right here. And so when you zip it closed, this actually sits in front of the zipper, and it keeps the draft from coming in and getting you through the zipper portion. So on cold nights, you'd want to zip this all the way up, cinch this tight around your neck, and then, you know, obviously close this up, and you can get this small to where only your nose and your mouth sitting out if you're really freezing. On warm summer nights, you might zip this up about halfway just to kind of keep it in place, and then you can actually kick a foot out to regulate your heat. It's a two-way zipper there. So you can just vent that, and this is going to be comfortable pretty much for 4 seasons, as long as you're not in too frigid of an area. It's not really a mountaineering sleeping bag. They do have ones for those. For a sleeping bag, for a bug-out bag, this is basically ideal for me. And like I said, if you live in a slightly more frigid area, then you might want to go with the Plasma 15. Now in my case, and if you guys saw that last video with the Kifaru tent, you know that this thing comes with a stove. So again, that's going to allow that thing to go down to a lower temperature because I'll have my own heat source. I've got that fold-out cot, or rather snap-together cot, which is going to get me off the ground, and that's going to make sure that I'm not getting heat loss into the ground. So again, that's going to make that bag a little bit warmer. So on really cold nights, I can just use this, and this is a silk mummy bag liner, and it'll actually make that bag work well down about 10 more degrees than it's rated for. Silk just keeps you really warm. It's a great insulator, and this thing just doesn't weigh anything. So like I said before, you know, I get that sleeping bag, a tent, a cot, and a silk liner for the weight that I would get with just this other bag. And then for just a couple more pounds, I can go ahead and add in a stove. And this is just a little camp pillow, so I can put that in and make myself a little bit more comfortable. So with all this stuff and that sleeping bag, we're looking at about 12.5 pounds. With the old Army sleeping bag, it's 11 pounds just by itself. So for me, for my money, this is the setup I would go for. All right, folks, so that's all I have for today. If you like what you saw, please like, rate, subscribe, all that stuff so you can see more videos from mine, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.